Welcome to The Survivor's Voice, where resilience meets hope. I'm your host, Angie Sedore. I'm sitting here with our producer and editor, Christina Elder.
Thank you so much, Angie. It's definitely a different experience being on this side of the room.
Yes.
But I am really grateful for the opportunity to talk to our listeners a little bit. I just want to say really quick that this show has really changed me hearing these stories. It's a real reminder of the realities of this world, the horrifics of the world, but also that healing is not just about surviving. Healing is about being heard, being validated, being understood by people.
Yeah. And that's what The Survivor's Voice is all about.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I love that we've been able to create a space for our guests where they can be heard and validated and understood.
Yes.
I'm actually really excited and very humbled by the feedback we've gotten from our guests actually about how great of an experience they've had.
And we've had such just a variety and a range of guests on our show. I mean, we have gone through trafficking and medical trauma, church trauma, war. I mean, just so many different things. And maybe some of our listeners are thinking about telling their story.
That would be so awesome. If that's the case, I would like our audience to know we would be honored and privileged to be able to be the platform for them if they so chose to tell their story.
Yes.
We also believe that every single story can help someone else.
Yes.
That's our whole purpose here. Our listeners should know that you don't need to be a speaker. You don't even necessarily need to be past your trauma. You just have to show up. So if listening to this is maybe making your heart beat a little faster, maybe that's a sign that you need to contact us, that maybe you can help somebody else with your story.
If you feel led to speak, we're ready to listen. So reach out to us at booking@thesurvivorsvoice.net. Your story matters here because your voice is your power. Special thank you to Bowman Carter for creating the original music for this podcast. You can find Bowman's music by searching for Bowman Carter on Spotify and on YouTube. We've attached his links in our description of today's episode. Please show him love and support. Today on The Survivor's Voice,
an incident with my mother where she actually tried to take my own life. From that moment on, I just knew that God had a plan for me. You knew that I was going to die.
the content shared on the Survivor's Voice podcast is intended to be informative and inspirational. We are not licensed therapists, counselors, or medical professionals. The views expressed are based on personal experiences and should not be considered professional advice. If you are in need of mental health support, please consult a licensed professional. Before we begin, this episode may contain discussions of trauma, abuse, or other sensitive topics. Listener discretion is advised. We don't recommend playing this show with young children present, and we encourage you to prioritize your well-being. Welcome to The Survivor's Voice. I'm your host, Angie Sedore, and today we are here with Kenna. And she is glowing. She is beautiful. I can't wait for you to meet her. And she's allowed us to talk to her about her story. And so I'm looking forward to the hope and the encouragement that's going to come out of it today. So Kenna, thank you so much for being here with us.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
So grateful. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what do you do? Who are you?
Yeah. Well, I'm a wedding photographer. I am a writer, I would say, but I haven't finished writing my book.
Okay.
But that I'm like speaking that into existence.
Yes.
I need to.
Yes.
That's going to happen. And yeah, I am about to be a mom. I'm a bonus mom, and yeah.
Is this your first?
Yes, this is
Oh
my first.
gosh. Do you enjoy doing wedding photography?
Yes, I love it. Honestly, it's just something I kind of stumbled upon as I was going to college and just trying to pay off debt and kind of do the Dave Ramsey thing. And it turned into a full-blown business post-COVID. And so I love it a lot, and it gives me the flexibility and freedom to be able to run my own business.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah.
So let's get into your story. Let's kind of hear a little bit about your upbringing and, what was Kenna like as a little girl?
I was born into a blended family. So my parents, they had kids from previous marriages. My dad had 2 sons and my mom had 1, and then they got together and had me within a year of knowing each other, and were divorced within a year. So kind of a big blended family. That's kind of like what I was born into. And then from there, they lived in different states, so I was back and forth a lot between Idaho and Washington, and I didn't know it at the time, but my dad had struggled with his own addiction issues, and so I was primarily with my mom. She was my primary caretaker, and so I grew to be a total mama's girl, and looking back at it now, it was a very codependent relationship. I was definitely being like groomed by her narcissistic tendencies, but I just thought that I was like, you know, she was just my best friend, and that was just normal, and that's like how everyone had their relationship with their mom. Like, I don't think I ever slept in my own bed when I lived with my mom, and I lived with her until I was 10 years old. And so it was always kind of like a struggle going back and forth between mom and dad's house.
What was your father's addiction?
He was primarily, at first, when I was in those younger years, that was, alcohol was his drug of choice. And then it shifted and turned to mainly opioids and painkillers. So, yeah. And then when I was probably, it was when right after my sister was born, and we are 7.5 years apart, my mom started falling into her own addiction as well. And again, her drug of choice was opioids and like benzodiazepines and stuff like that. Okay. And so I was in this position at a really young age where both of my parents were heavy in addiction, and that was just normal to me. I didn't know anything different.
Sure.
Yeah. So that was kind of like the start of my childhood.
Okay. So how did that impact you?
Oh, that's a great question. Honestly, it changed the trajectory of my whole entire life. I think children of addicts can all relate when you have a parent who's addicted, or 2 parents who are addicted, or anyone in the household who is an addict. They say it's a family disease. It doesn't just affect that one person. And at first, like looking back, it made me parentified. Like, I felt like I had to be the parent in that situation. I was 7, 8, 9 years old and cooking for my brand new baby sister, who was a newborn, 1, 2, changing all of her diapers. My mom couldn't get out of bed. And then I was like very hyper aware of my surroundings, and I was laying out her pills in the morning, and
wow,
I was doing all of those things as a child that I didn't realize children aren't supposed to do. They're not supposed to carry the weight of their parents, and kind of the trying to lift them up. But I was always made to be hyper independent because of that. And eventually it ended up leading to an incident with my mother where she actually tried to take my own life.
Your life?
Yes, take my life. So on Christmas Day of 2006, my mom gave me a concoction of over 50, they don't know exactly, but over 50 benzodiazepine, so like hydrocodone, Oxycontin, lorazepam, trazodone, just a concoction of that.
How old
crushed
were you?
up. I was 10 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, crushed up in a glass of water, and had me drink it, and I ended up in the Seattle Children's Hospital.
Oh, who found you?
So, I've been going back now and like relearning the case now that I'm older, because there was a lot that I didn't know back then, or I just heard. It's really frustrating to get those records, but I did end up, I went back and was able to get some of the records, and my mom did end up calling 911, and she was very out of it. So she had also taken a concoction of the medication as well. But what we know now is that she didn't take nearly as much as I did. And because she was heavy in her addiction, the amount she was taking versus the amount I had and her age and all of that, her tolerance, was nowhere near what my 10-year-old self had. Yeah. So
you guys were alone?
Yes, it was just her and I. My other siblings were at their dad's house, both 2 separate houses. And so what had happened is I had gotten back from my dad's house, and he had gotten me an elaborate trip to go to Disneyland with my step-siblings, and I think that kind of like struck a nerve in her. I don't know exactly if that's what had set her off or set her into a manic, but she had later been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder and bipolar. So I think that, in addition to the drug use, just sent her into this manic. And as soon as we got back from the hospital, not the hospital, but as soon as we had gotten back from the airport that day, because I had just flown in from Idaho, that's when she started preparing things. And I had a toothache, so I had said, like, I need some medicine for my toothache. And the drive is like 2.5 hours from Seattle to Port Angeles, where we were living at the time. And she's like, as soon as we get home, like, I'll get you some medicine. I'll make you feel better. And of course, when it's your mother, like, and you trust her with your whole life, you don't think anything different. And so we had gotten home, and I hated taking medicine anyway. So I'm like, I'm fine now. It just, like, really hurts. And she's like, no, you need to, like, go lay in my bed and I'll get you medicine. And she was doing a lot of other stuff. Like, I had come in and I'm like, you know what? I'm fine. I'm watching my show. I can just go to bed now. And she was on the computer writing something. And then she just sent me back. Later I found out that was a suicide homicide letter that she had written knowingly, in her right mind, was writing this while I was in the bedroom, knowing that she was about to do this to me and have me
premeditated.
Yes. Yeah. So she came in, had me drink it, and she added some, like, Capri Sun to it because I said it tasted so bad. It's like if you have that chalky taste of, like a one single pill and you're like, that tastes disgusting. It was that times like 1,000.
Oh my gosh.
But she had me drink the whole thing, and then I don't remember anything after that. But what had happened is she had kind of snapped out of her manic, or had come to and called 911, which I have now listened to the 911 recording. And she basically said that I need help. Like, I gave my daughter medicine and I don't know if she's okay. And the 911 operator was such a godsend, but he's like trying to work through this. Like, well, is she breathing? Are you next to her? And she's saying, like, well, I can't move, but she really needs someone. So they dispatched 911, and she ended up walking out of the house. So if that is any indicator of how coherent she was versus me, I was laid out on a stretcher, and I've seen the pictures now going back in the case. I had like white stuff coming out of my mouth. My whole right side of my hand was swollen and super red. Like, it looks like basically my body was dying, and I was only breathing once, I don't know, every few minutes, I think that they said. So I got to the local hospital, and they immediately life-flighted me to Seattle Children's Hospital. And I had to get 3 Narcan reversals, which usually if someone overdoses on heroin, they're giving you 1. And my 10-year-old self got 3. And like I said, I was in a coma for a couple of days, and then finally came to, which I always say, just like from that moment on, I just knew that God had a plan for me, because like people don't go through that, especially young children, and not have anything severely wrong with them. I didn't have brain damage. I didn't have anything. After I was out of my coma and stabilized, I walked out of the hospital and into foster care. So it's just a miracle. It's like I knew when I woke up in that hospital room, like I can envision what that looked like. I remember how big the room was. I remember my dad holding my hand. Like, I remember all of these confusing things, but I just remember also feeling like a peace that like the Lord saved me for a reason.
Wow. Where's your mom now?
She is in Port Angeles, but there was 2 years.
She didn't go to prison?
She did, yes.
Okay.
So that was back in 2006. It took 2 years, which is very typical for like the trial to happen. So when I was released from the hospital, I was put into foster care for a couple of days until they figured out like, okay, well, where's McKenna going to go? Because this was her primary caretaker. My dad got custody, but I ended up living with an aunt and uncle because he was really heavy in his addiction. And then within that 2 years, they got the trial all put together. So I think it was in 2008 when I was called back to Port Angeles. I moved to Idaho. I was called back to Port Angeles to testify as a witness in the case. And then a few months after that, I think she was sentenced early of 2009. And because of double jeopardy and certain things that the prosecutor was trying to charge her with, she didn't get like as big of a sentence as I was hoping for. So she was sentenced to 12 years. She only served 9. So she was out 2019. It was like right before COVID. So she's been out, and now she's no longer on parole or anything. So she's not held to any restrictions. She can be around children, which she has been, and she's just out living normal life.
Has she tried to contact you?
Yes, yeah. Actually, during COVID, I actually had to get a no contact order because she was still trying to like harass me in certain ways. And it's kind of hard for people to understand let me go back, I will say. When the sentencing happened, there was also an order put in place that I would have a no contact order for life. So basically she could never get a hold of me.
Okay.
Which at the time I think was really good. There was the option when I turned 18 for me to be able to break it. What people don't understand is that like I never got that closure from my mom. Like she was my best friend. I did everything with her. Like before those years of her addiction, like she was my world. Like that was my mom.
Yeah.
And so when that incident happened, it like shook my whole world. And so from 10 to 18, all I could think about was like, I just want to like talk to her. I just want to know like
what happened.
Yeah. What was it? What happened? Like, what's your reasoning? I want to face you. So when I was 18, after I had become legally emancipated from my father, I decided to break the no contact order. And the judge never let me know that I could never get that in place again, which I really wish that I would have had a lot more legal guidance and like just a lot more knowledge of how the system works, because I think I would have thought a lot more intently about that decision. But I was 18 and I was about to graduate high school and go to college, and I was so curious, and I wanted to know, I wanted to see my mom.
Yeah.
So I ended up breaking that no contact order and going to see her in prison for the first time to just sit down and ask her like why and what. And it was this out of body experience because I was sitting there. I mean, first of all, going to prison is just crazy. Going into a prison is just wild, especially when you're like going to see this person who, I mean, what mothers carry like their children's cells in them their whole life. So like I have this connection to this human being, but then I also feel like she's such a stranger. And so I sat there for 3 hours, like talking to her. It's like we had these memories and we had these things, but then I was like, she knows nothing about like the person and the woman I've become. And not only that, but these 8 years that I've had to live through have also been really traumatic. I had to go and live with someone who she knew had been abusive to her, and I was subject to that abuse as well. And I had to deal with addiction even furthermore. And so it was like all of these emotions all encapsulated in one. And I think that like one meeting I was like, oh, I'm going to get all this clarity. And I was even more confused.
Oh, gosh.
And so I did keep that contact for a little bit, but I started
What did she tell you? What was the why? I mean,
the why has always been that she was trying to save me from my father. And to a certain extent, just knowing some of the things that I do know, for someone who has a mental disorder and also an addiction, like I can see how that could be a perspective. Like, oh, I'm trying to save her from all this abuse that I encountered or all this stuff that I had gone through. I don't want her to go through that as well. But on the contrary, any sane person can see, like, if I hurt my child, then they're going to go to the exact place that I'm trying to save her from. Right. So, like, how is that saving me? I would see my dad every other holiday, you know? So it's like, was that really worth me actually going into his custody at the time of him being, like, a very, very unhealthy person? And so it's this narrative of, like, well, I was taking her to see Jesus so that, like, she didn't have to endure the pain, which is the narrative she still says now, and the narrative of her trying to take her own life too, which through going back through the case and everything, it's like you walked out of the house. You did not take enough to physically commit suicide yourself. So it wasn't a suicide homicide. It was, you knew that I was going to die. And thank God, like, he got to her and got to her senses and she did call 911, because if she didn't, then it's the narrative, oh, well, she saved me.
Oh my gosh.
So it's like,
that's a real mind twister there.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
How do you reason with someone if that's the narrative? It was a drug-induced psychosis. It was because of this person, this person, this person. And the blame has always been, like, shifted onto other people. And while she has said, like, I'm so sorry, like, I can't believe I've done that, it's the flip side of then the narcissism comes in and it's like, but I had to do it because of this person and this person and this person, what I went through when I was a child. And it's like all of these things that after I had that first contact with her, I started to realize, and I'm glad I did that for myself, but I started to realize this is a really, really unhealthy person who hasn't gotten, maybe she's gotten clean because she's had to, because she's in prison, but she's not getting well. Like, she's not doing the things that she needs to do to keep her mind healthy and to live with borderline personality disorder in the way that she needs to be a healthy person for other people.
Yeah.
And so I always went into it with, like, if she's going to show remorse and she's going to decide that she's not going to be that person anymore, I believe God heals. Like, I believe he performs miracles. I believe that there are ways that we can, you know, totally cut away from our past. Like, but if someone isn't actively doing that, they're still a very toxic and unhealthy human being. And, like, I can't be a part of that. So there were numerous times throughout my, you know, late teen years and into my early 20s where I wrestled with that. Like, I went back and forth with that. I went back and forth with that with my own dad too, of, like, when you're dealing with addicts, it's like you're dealing with two different human beings. And how do you not enable and set healthy boundaries, but then also love and forgive and do all the things that we're called to do as Christians? And it gets really messy when it's your own parents. Yeah. And so come COVID time and when she was harassing me, I mean, I would get stuff in the mail like, oh, it's Mother's Day, which is one of the hardest days of the year for me.
Oh, I bet.
And I would get all the Mother's Day cards that I had ever written her. She'd mail them back.
Ooh, that's manipulative. That's so manipulative.
Yeah. So, like, stuff like that was happening. Wow. She had someone drop off like 9 totes of everything that she'd ever kept of me, my brother, and my sister. And, like, 7 of them were mine. 1 of them was my sister's. 1 of them was my brother's. And it's like a whole medical box of stuff that, like, I didn't need to see. I didn't need to see court cases that she took my dad to court from. Like, just these things that, like, just because I'm an adult doesn't mean that I should be reading this stuff from my parents' relationship. Especially, like, what are you trying to prove? Are you just trying to hurt me more? Like, I ended up just taking that box and having someone burn it because I'm like, I don't need to read that.
Right.
Like, I've been through enough. Yeah. I don't need your continued manipulation. And it's really hard, too, because I feel like my parents have used God as a form or a way to manipulate other people. Like, oh, God is so good. He forgives. He heals, which I 100% believe. Like, God has single-handedly, like, saved my life and, like, given me the opportunity to like live in so much of abundance that I couldn't ever imagine. However, that's not a way for you to like manipulate other people. And then they're going to think that, have this skewed version of God because of the way that they're still acting.
Yes.
So it's just a mental,
Oh gosh.
a mental mind game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how have you dealt with that? I mean, you seem like a pretty positive person.
Oh, I mean, I wouldn't say that I've always done a perfect job, and I definitely, like, in my late teen years and early 20s, like, I clung to a lot of control, and I clung to a lot of, like, performing and overachieving, because I felt like, okay, well, if I can prove people wrong, then I'll know, like, my worth and my value. And that's not always healthy. You know, it's like, I always tell people, like, in a classroom, there's all these children, and usually the teachers are really focused on the kids who are like really acting out and lashing out and having these behaviors like, oh, well, they must be seeking attention. It's like, okay, well, you also need to be looking at the children who are overperforming, overachieving, and acting way older than they are, because
where's that coming from?
Yeah, because those children are also, that's also not normal.
Right.
That's a way that people cope. And that was me. Like, if I got straight A's and if I was, you know, doing all these other activities, and if I was excelling in cheerleading, and if I was doing all these sports and all of these things, then like I was getting the approval that I needed, that like I was worthy, and I was worth, that my life was worth it, because I didn't ever get that validation from my parents. So I think that like was a way that I was healthily coping. You know, it's like these things aren't inherently bad, but they're not inherently good either, because then that's teaching you that your worth comes from what you do,
right? And
your worth doesn't come from what you do. It's whose daughter you are, which is Christ. And
right.
So I feel like in a way, like, I really can only say that like God has helped to heal me and to protect me. And even though I've messed up and I've had to navigate life and learn things the hard way and stuff, I feel like the Holy Spirit has really protected me. And like I said, from that time that I was in the hospital room, like, I just knew he had a plan. I'd always felt the presence of the Holy Spirit, which is something that I can't explain. You know, some people have like this moment where they're like, I accept Jesus into my heart. Like, I just felt like the Holy Spirit's always been in me and around me. And that has been a huge blessing in my life, because that's the one thing I've been able to cling to, is like the truth of God. And that, you know, he does have plans to give me life and life abundantly. And, you know, that with a lot of therapy. So,
yeah, no kidding.
I'm not gonna say that, you know, I needed therapy too.
Yeah. So now that you're going to be a mother.
Yes.
Does that change your perspective on what your mom did to you? Like, how does that?
Yeah, I think that's the journey that I'm walking through right now is like probably the most transformative, like, difficult part of my healing journey, because I can't even imagine like the love that you have for this baby. Like, I haven't even met my baby, you know, and the protection and like the motherly instincts that I feel towards this being that I've never even met before. I can't imagine harming that or using your that trust that a child has in you as a parent and manipulating it. You know, it's like you're so vulnerable. You just think that your parents always want to protect you and they always want what's best, and that's what's supposed to be.
Yes.
But then for a mother to abuse that and neglect that and turn that as a way to harm their child and try to murder their child, I couldn't imagine that. And so I think just this process of being pregnant, and I've always said, like, I was born to be a mom. And, you know, thankfully I have that second chance of like my mother wasn't the mother that she was supposed to be, but now I get to be the mother that God has created me to be for this little human, and what a blessing that is, and like what redemption that is going to be. But it also comes with a lot of heaviness, because it's just a different level of understanding.
Yeah.
Or not understanding, and maybe I'm never supposed to understand how someone could do that.
And you won't. There's no way.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's been a wild ride, but I feel like my purpose is to just break that generational curse of like both of my parents having addiction and having mental health struggles and all of this. It's like that ends with me.
Yeah.
That's not going to be continued in my lineage.
Yes.
And like God has prepared me to be that curse breaker and to be someone who says like, no more. Like, this will not happen in my family. My children will never know the pain that I had to walk through, and their children will never have to know. It's like that song, what's that song? Like, for 1,000 generations and your children and your children and their children.
Yes.
Like, I just sob when I listen to that song, because it's true. Like, we have the power, and God gives us the power to stop that.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah.
I think that like one of the things throughout like my healing journey that has been really pivotal, more so in my relationship with my dad, but also in my relationship with my mom, is just realizing that there's a difference between like forgiving and forgiving with wisdom. And I think that there is this like toxicity within the church of, oh, well, you're just supposed to forgive 70 times 7. And, you know, you're always supposed to just, you know, family is family and keep moving forward. And as I mature in my walk with Christ and in my therapy journey, I think that like God gives us wisdom to know that there are boundaries for a reason. Like, we don't have to continue to perpetuate. If we keep these relationships and these people in our lives that are inherently unhealthy, like that is why we're continuing these cycles within families, because we're all just enabling, you know, oh, it's okay, we'll just brush it under the rug. Like, no, that's not okay. And I'm not going to have people in my life or in my children's life who every time I'm around them, I'm like getting full body.
Oh my gosh, no.
Like, I'm getting
hives.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Like, I have like an actual reaction, and no matter how much therapy, it's like, you also have to realize, I had a therapist say like, well, is this person being the role that they're supposed to be? Like, what is being a dad or being a mom? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah.
You know, and you can ask that question for anyone in your life. What does being a sister look like? What does being a friend look like? Like, and is this person filling that role? And if they're not, it's okay to set the boundary, because sometimes loving them from a distance is setting that boundary. Absolutely. And saying that, like, I'm not going to tolerate this anymore.
Yes.
I think there's a silence too that has happened a lot in my family of like, well, we don't talk about the bad stuff. And so now I'm the black sheep, because I'm coming out with the things that have actually happened to me. And I've actually been threatened to be sued by a family member for sharing my story. And it's like, you know what? There's a reason that there is this wave of people coming out and wanting to be those curse breakers, because like we're talking about it, and these things need to be talked about, because these things happen. And maybe not every day someone's mom tries to murder them, or, you know, but I know that there have been hundreds of people who have messaged me on TikTok and said, my parent is an addict, and like I'm sitting in the hospital room right now listening to your story, hoping that they don't pass away. And, you know, just all of these different things that people are coming out like, please keep sharing your story, because there are people that feel like they can't share and that they don't have a voice and that they shouldn't be sharing because it's taboo. And I think that comes along with like generations before just sweeping everything under the rug. It's like, no, like stories heal and people heal.
Yes.
And that's why we have a voice.
Exactly. That's why we have this podcast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Totally.
Exactly.
Yeah. And we say it all the time. Like, the more you tell your story, the less power it has over you.
Yes.
And so I commend you for coming on here and even having your own TikTok. And it's great.
Thank you.
It's great.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm really proud of you.
Thank you.
What's your relationship with your dad? Where's he at?
I actually, about a year ago, I decided to go no contact with my father because I realized he was still active in his addiction, and that has been one of the hardest things, because I've seen him struggle in his faith and his addiction and his mental health, and I have so much like compassion and empathy, and like I see this person who so desperately wants to be a certain way and to be a certain person and a certain dad, and then also not being able to show up for himself, which in return he can't show up for us.
Yeah.
And that triggers me a lot, and it's really frustrating, and every single time I'm around, I feel my body, like I said, going into those, like every time I have a reaction or an interaction with him, my body has a physical reaction. And I kind of just had to come to this place of like, if this person is not healthy, then I can't be around them or even in contact with them. And so that was a conversation I had with my therapist, and then I gave him the opportunity, like, please go get help. Like, I really want you to be in my life, but I can't have you be in my life if you're going to continue to do these things.
Yes.
And I never got a response, and so I just decided, you know what, no contact is what's best.
Because he probably would never respect that boundary. Because a lot of people like that just don't know how.
Right. I think that learning about boundaries, like I've read the Boundaries book by Dr. Henry Cloud. Yes.
Yeah.
And then like I have a Codependency No More book that my therapist told me to read, and just all these different things that like I realized I was to my dad, and there was no boundaries, you know, in our family. Like what was the first example of boundaries or something? I think that it asked that in the book. And so like you have to like work through it, and I was like, oh, like none. We don't have any. So now when I set them, it's like the whole world shakes, because how could you?
Yes.
You know, that's so horrible. And
right.
But it's something that I have to do. And now being pregnant, it's like I don't want my child to ever feel those feelings towards their grandpa or their, you know, and that's really hard, because I mourn that for my child, but I also know it's like a loss that they don't know of is better than a loss that they've experienced pain from.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It takes a lot of work, a lot of strength to set boundaries. Mm-hmm. It's hard.
It's not easy.
No, it's not.
No. And you constantly like, and also I think I've heard something that someone says like, you know, if a boundary doesn't ruffle feathers, then it's not a good enough boundary.
It's so true.
You know?
So true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of our listeners probably have heard your story before, because you're pretty vocal on your TikTok about it. But some are hearing it for the very first time. And so is there anything that you can tell them that would offer them some hope or some encouragement if they're going through something similar?
That is such a good question. Honestly, like I said before, stories heal. And I truly believe that finding your voice, you know, whether that be silently to just the people who are closest in your life, or if that's publicly, I just think that has been one of the most crucial parts of me healing. And, you know, obviously, like, if something has happened to you, you can be a victim without staying in a victim mindset. And I think that that's really important and has been important in my journey of healing. It's like, you know, these things have happened to us that we didn't have any control over, and we have to be the ones to change the narrative of that. So like being able to see those parts of yourself that need healing and that need work, and being able to do the hard work, go to therapy. EMDR therapy has been huge for me. It rewires those memories so that you can actually heal from them and not be affected by them as much, or be affected by the people who hurt you. It's really great for trauma and PTSD. So I would say therapy is huge. the more knowledge that you have about what you have gone through, or getting connected in community with other people who are survivors.
Yeah.
And then just the faith, like the faith I have in God is what has carried me through my healing journey the most, and being able to know that I should have never gone through what I went through, but everything does truly happen for a reason. And if something like that's going to happen to me, then I want to be able to be a beacon of light to other people, and to share that, like, you don't have to be a statistic. You don't have to be a product of the hurt that people have caused you. And you can truly change the trajectory of your life and your family's life and the generations to come.
I love that. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming and telling your story. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Safe Harbor is dedicated to helping survivors of trauma find healing and restoration through support, resources, and community. They provide hope for those affected by human trafficking. Visit safeharborforfreedom.com to learn more or support their mission today. Thank you so much, Safe Harbor, for supporting the survivor's voice. Next week on The Survivor's Voice,
beating him to the point where all 8 of us children were trying to pull my dad off of him. What a savior he had been for me the whole time. And you know, as a victim, sometimes you don't think anyone deserves to have forgiveness.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to this story on The Survivor's Voice. I'm your host, Angie Sedore, reminding you that every survivor's story matters. A heartfelt thank you to our incredible listeners for your support, and to the survivor community for your courage and resilience. You are the heart of this show. Special thanks to our producer and editor, Christina Elder, to Bowman Carter for our beautiful song, and to Dan Wise with North Idaho Podcast Productions for bringing these powerful stories to life. Your dedication, talent, and most importantly, your hearts make the survivor's voice possible.